Welcome to PowerPoint Power Up, Slides and Handouts in Perfect Sync. I'm Dr. Linda McCauley, and I'm with Brandon Henry today, and we are with the ETI Support Office. Our goals for today are listed. Please take a moment to look over those before we begin. So let's start off with this quote. It sets the stage for why we are teaching this trick today with PowerPoint, because great slides make terrible handouts and great handouts make terrible slides. So we're going to spend some time today showing you a way that you can actually accomplish both. Before we dive into those details, let's look at some examples of what we mean by that quote. So this slide has lots of details and information, but it's really overwhelming to look at. Even bolding some of that intro text on each of the lines, or even if we animated each bullet, doesn't make this content simple enough to digest as a learner listens to your lecture. But this is the type of information and detail that our learners want so that they have good notes to review later. So this slide is more like the information that should be in a handout, but is very difficult to teach from. This slide is much easier to look at, and the instructor can then paste their notes into the slide to teach from and use that slide as their outline to keep the lesson on track. But it doesn't give all the information a learner might want to be able to review later. So this slide is good for teaching, but it's not a great handout. So what is the ideal solution? Create your slides designed effectively for presentation during the lecture, and modify the notes page to act as a student review note for students to refer to later to study and review. And that is what we're going to teach you today. But before we dive into all those details for a live demo and how to accomplish it with PowerPoint, we want to just take a few moments to review some basic design strategies that you want to keep in mind as you design each of these things. So as you think about your slides, those are visual aids to use for teaching. They will have less text, graphics, infographics, so that it's interesting to look at as you're listening to the lecture. Keep in mind the 6x6 rule, which means no more than 6 words per bullet and no more than 6 bullets per slide. This forces you to stick to key concepts only, and 1 concept per slide is preferred. Also think about limiting your colors and fonts, and consider your text size so that it's readable to your students in a lecture hall. The second component is your handout. The handouts are your deep dives. Here is where you will have more text to explain and elaborate. You can use sentences, paragraphs, include external references or URL links to additional resources. You could even give your students space for note-taking. But also in that handout, think about your colors and fonts and your text size so that it's easy to read. And the last piece is purposeful design for each one. Remember that your slide's purpose is to communicate with your audience. It is for you to teach. The handout's purpose is the resource for your students to review content or concepts or to take notes. By using each for its specific purpose, you will avoid cognitive overload for your students. You will be better able to chunk your content for good teaching, and you will also have space on your slides to include the USU logo or a disclaimer if you're using something externally. So in PowerPoint today, we're going to show you 2 tools to create the handout right in your PowerPoint slides file. Under the View menu, you're going to use the Notes Master to create all of the elements on our handout that we need to be the same on every page. So think of the header, footer, logo, page numbers, that kind of thing. And then we're going to use the Notes page button to view the actual content that you're going to put on each page of your handout that's unique for each individual slide in the lecture presentation. Before we dive into that live demo, we do want to give a quick caution. Because we are a Google school, we want to make sure you are aware that Google Slides does not have that Notes page or Notes Master feature. You can open a PowerPoint in Google Slides to look at it, but don't edit it. If you edit a PowerPoint in Google Slides, it actually breaks the Notes Master in PowerPoint, and no more edits will be possible on any existing slides. The content will still be there, but not the elements that you added to the Notes Master, like headers or footers. The workaround is to download the PowerPoint file from Drive and work only in PowerPoint. Then re-upload the new file back to Drive so that if you're working with any colleagues, they can see the edits that have been made. Now, we do recommend also as a backup, especially if you're working with others, to keep a copy of the PowerPoint version locally on your machine that is not connected to Google Drive, just in case somebody makes a mistake because they didn't know about this nuance to the tools. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Brandon Henry, and he will do the live demo of how you accomplish the handout and use PowerPoint to do so.
So I'm going to open up another PowerPoint slide here, and I have just some example slides so you can see them here on the left-hand side. And as Linda mentioned, we're going to be talking about the Notes Master and the Notes Pages. Two different things, and I'll go through each function for you, but you get to that up here at the top through the View menu. When I click on View, you can see here that I have Notes Master and a Notes Page. Now, the difference between the two is the Notes Master is what you would consider like your template. So you're going to build all the pieces on your Notes Master that you want to show up on every single page. And then the Notes Page is where you'll actually populate each page with content. So let's go into the Notes Master first. And you can see that this is sort of the default view of the Notes Master, and it's already got some pre-made items on here. So you've got a header, your date, the master title style here. This is actually what your slides are. So as you build your slideshows, they will go on to each notes page. And when you scroll through each note, you'll see the slide right here at the top. Now this bottom one looks like this would be where the content is, but this is actually where the speaker notes are. So if you go into your slide and you have speaker notes, the stuff that you're going to say to the people as you're presenting, that will show up here. But as we said, good handouts don't necessarily have the things that you have on your presentation. They might have alternate information. And so what we're going to do is create a master notes page that will represent what all the rest of the notes will look like, and then we'll populate them. Now, I don't necessarily want all of these things on my notes page. So what I'm going to do, if you look up here at the top, there's a series of check boxes, and you can just turn these on and off by clicking check boxes. So I'm going to turn off header, date, and footer. And I'm going to leave the slide image, the body, and the page number. Remember, the body is not actually like the content that you're using, it's your speaker notes. But we want to keep those just in case, you know, later you come back to your presentation and you want to make modifications to it. We'll still have the speaker notes available, but they won't be on the handouts per se. So let's do a couple things. If I click on this text box down here, it'll highlight, and I can scoot this right off the side of the page. You see my page moves over. Now, anything that appears on the white section here, that's what's going to print out, and anything over here in the gray is not going to print out. So this would be your speaker notes. Now, if you pass this off to someone else and they see text over here on the side, they think it's, you know, just stuff that doesn't need to be kept, and they want to delete it. They may want to delete it. So what I like to do is create just a little note out here that says speaker notes, do not delete. And so I can do that by clicking on the text tool, which is right up here under home. You can also find it under the insert tab. There's a text box. Where are you? Text box right here, a little bit bigger, same icon, a little bit bigger. So either home or insert. Let's click on text box, and we're going to draw a text box right here. And I'm going to type the words speaker notes, do not delete. Okay. Now, since this is a template, what's going to happen is any page that has, or any one of your slides that have speaker notes on them, they will show up over here on the right-hand side of the page. And then, as I said, when we go into the notes page, we can add the content here. I'm going to leave the page number down here. Now, here's the neat thing about the Notes Master. You don't have to have just a blank page if you don't want to. You can create shapes and add graphics and everything else to make it look however you want it to look. So if I want to have, like, let's say a header bar, and I might want to include the USIS logo on my notes, I can come up here to the rectangle tool and just draw a rectangle at the top, like so. And maybe I want to put one down here at the bottom as well. So under the insert menu, I can go to shapes, or where I was before, I was on the home tab. It's in multiple places, so you can find it in a couple different places. So I'm going to click on rectangle again, and I'm just going to make a little footer down here to kind of hold the page number. And I don't know if you saw that or not, but the page number looks like a little hashtag in parentheses right now. And when you have pages, it will auto-populate the page number. Now, if I move this down here on top, that is going to block the page number. So I have to right-click on the square or the rectangle, and I'm going to send that to the back. So I'll right-click, send to back. Now you can see my page number again. And I can highlight that just like it's a regular text box. I just clicked on it, and I can change that text to white. So now I've got a page number here that I'll be able to see. I've got a little header up here, and then I can come in here to the insert tab again and click pictures. And like I said, you could add whatever pictures you like. I'm going to add the USIS logo. You can't see the little window that I'm opening. I have one saved on my desktop, so I'm just going to grab that one. And it'll put it on my page. This is really big. You can see there. I can click on the little control handles here in the corners, and I can resize that. If I hold down the shift key, it'll keep it proportional. And now I've got a USIS logo for my handout. And if I wanted to, I could add a title and whatever else I have here. Okay, so this is the master page now. I've created basically a template for all of my other pages. So if I close master view, back on my slide sheet, if I go here to view and then go to notes page, you can see from my first slide, I'm going to click back on the slide thing here. I'll be jumping back and forth between normal and notes page. So here's the slides. So you can see that I've got, you know, circle on the first one, a couple of triangles on the second one. These are just so you kind of can see the difference between the pages. Notice down here also that I have some text for my presentation. So this says, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our brown bag session, blah, blah, blah. And the second one has, now I'm talking about slide 2. You know, obviously, I wouldn't say that, but these are my presenter notes. When I go into the notes page for each of these, by clicking on this icon at the top, notice how my speaker notes now are over here on the right-hand side because I moved that box earlier. So every one of my slide pages or my note pages will have the speaker notes on the right-hand side. So I'm just going to scroll my mouse wheel to jump to the next slides. So you can see they're automatically placed over there. Now you might recognize this slide from Linda's portion of the presentation. So here's one that I've taken the slide and I've added the content as like a notes page. And you can see that I've got my speaker notes over here on the right, and I've got my content over here on the left. And then, you know, as I scroll through, each of the pages have the logo and the little top bar and the bottom bar. And you can see down here that the page numbers are automatically updating as I scroll through my different slides. So now you can create a nice robust packet of handouts for each one of the slides rather than cramming your slides full of text content that people aren't going to read while you're presenting it. You can have a nice package to give to them afterwards, and you can save this as either a PDF or you can print them out with your printer. Now, if we want to add content to this slide, again, we're going to go back to the Insert menu at the top. I'm going to click on that, and that gives me all these options of things that I can add, just like you would build your slide. I'll add a text box, and it's completely up to you how you design your handout slides. You can make each page slightly different if you want. You know, you can put your text over here on the right-hand side and then make a space for people to write notes, or if you had keywords or terminology that you wanted to show. But here's a neat way to populate your text box. If you type equals in the word lorem, and then the two parentheses, open and close parentheses, and you hit return, it will fill that space with, you know, like the lorem ipsum kind of gibberish text. And you can kind of create placeholders for your handouts that, you know, as you're building your handouts, you can sort of see how much space you have for content. If you want to change the text size, you can do that. So I can come in here and highlight this. And this is just regular text now. And I can click on that or go up here to the top and change the size down to 14 if I want, or 12, whatever size you want. You can copy and paste. You can paste from other documents into here, and then just sort of build your content this way. So I'm just going to copy and paste another paragraph. Maybe I'll do 2 paragraphs just to fill the space a little bit. And now I've got kind of a handout slide started. And like I said, you could put whatever you want. If you wanted to put a light colored box over here and have terms or anything else, you know, you can change the colors. You can change the colors of everything. It's just like you're building a slide presentation. You have all of your controls right up here under the Home tab. So if I click on Home, which is already selected, I can go in here to shape fill and make that a light blue if I wanted to. I could change the outline color to no outline and just have kind of a floating box. It's completely up to you how you set up your handouts. So again, if I go up to View, this is the Notes page. So when I scroll down to my second note page, I don't have anything in there because I haven't populated that one yet. If I go to the Notes Master, then you can see how that changes, and you can see the default items and where they are here. So back on the Notes page, I could create the content for slide 2. And if you create a slide set, and there's a particular slide that you don't necessarily want to have on the page, you might have a lot of text content for that one. You don't have to have the slide on that page. You can click the slide and just move it off into the gray area, and that won't print. And so that leaves your whole page. So if you want to add something else, or if you have a different photo that you want to add for that particular slide, you could add that in here and then fill in your notes page for your students. Now, I've kind of gone through and created a couple of sample pages here, you can see. And like I said, they're nothing real special, just to show you examples of handouts. But when you want to then give this to your students, as I said earlier, you can create either a PDF of all these pages, or you can print them out on your printer. Now, to do that, if I go up here to the File menu, you might think you want to do Save as Adobe PDF, but what that's going to do is actually save your presentation slides and not your notes pages. So you want to go down to the Print option, and down on these drop-down boxes, you see the one here that says full page slides. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to change that to notes pages. And now you can see on the right-hand side that what's going to print out or be created as a PDF. And I can scroll through these as well to see what pages are going to be there. Now, in this example, I don't have anything on page 2. So if I only want to print pages 1, 3, 4, and 5, or even 1, 3, and 5, because 4 doesn't really have anything on there either. These are just kind of sample things. But if I only wanted to print certain pages, I can do that under this box here that says print all slides. I can change that to a custom range. And I can say either 1-3, which will print pages 1, 2, and 3, so everything between 1 and 3. Or if I wanted specific pages, I would separate those with a comma. So in this case, I just want to do pages 1, 3, and 5. So I can do 1, 3, 5. Oops, and I hit 11 there. So let's fix that. So I've got 1, 3, and 5 notes pages. And you can see that my printer is set up to Adobe PDF. So let's go ahead and click the print button on here. And it'll prompt me to save it somewhere. So I've switched over to Adobe Acrobat. Now you can see my pages are here. And as I scroll through these, I have page 1, page 3, down here in the corner, and page 5. And that's it. So I have a 3-page document that I've just printed out. And that's how you would create handouts using PowerPoint. So now you've got your slides and your handouts all in one package that you can keep together. Makes it a little easier to find everything and keep track of everything. And with that, I will turn it back over to Linda.
So if you'd like some additional information about how to do this after this webinar, we do have some links to some guides that would be helpful to you. There is a YouTube link to a previous presentation that we've done for designing in Google Slides that will give you some more of the design elements you might want to consider to be a little more fancy in your handout, to use images and colors appropriately. We also included the 2 links to Microsoft Help Guides for changing the page size of your Notes Master and also how to print those notes pages as well. So to recap, today we identified the difference in verbal and print modalities as we think about how we can optimize our PowerPoint slides for teaching and our PowerPoint notes for those handouts. And remember that the template is your Notes Master, so put all the content on the Notes Master that you want to be the same on every page, and then put the individual unique content for each slide on the notes page. Here are our references.
Thank you for watching today's Teaching with Technology Brown Bag session. You can view all Teaching with Technology Brown Bags on the USU YouTube channel under the full ETI playlist. Have a nice day.